Today, the Ravens are at the center of a bombshell that could change everything. Reinforced offensive force, movement in the backfield, and a line that wants to destroy. You need to see this. And in the end, tell me in the comments, is this team ready to go far in 2026? The future of Lamar Jackson. Let's start with what's on every Ravens fan's mind. What's happening with Lamar Jackson? On May 12th, ESPN's Jamison Hensley observed something important. Jackson had been showing up for parts of the volunteer preseason program and the first minicamp under new head coach Jesse Minter. For many, this was an encouraging sign, especially considering the two-time regular year champion wants a multi-million-dollar contract extension. But then came the news that shook everything up. Jackson didn't show up for Baltimore's team practice on Tuesday. The football world began to speculate. Minter, however, sent a clear message. No one outside the team should jump to conclusions. Lamar has been one of our leaders in the preseason program, Minter said. Some things happened yesterday and today. We expect him to be back soon. And there's more important context here. Lamar's 5-year contract, valued at up to $260 million with $185 million guaranteed, includes a $750,000 bonus tied to attending at least 80% of the voluntary program. Jackson did not meet this requirement in either 2024 or 2025. Financially, he can waive it. But symbolically, each absence increases the tension. Minter himself had already made it clear that he wanted Jackson in voluntary workouts. Offensive coordinator Declan Doyle did too. And despite the public silence, Jackson hasn't participated in a team media event since the loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers that ended the 2025 season. Minter gave a significant signal. I've had great conversations with him. I know when he's coming back, and I'll probably leave that between me and Lamar. The mandatory minicamp begins on June 9th. Jackson is expected to be there. But the current contract prevents Baltimore from using the franchise tag, which means, if there is no extension, Lamar could be a free agent in March 2028. Teams across the league are already eyeing this situation. Now tell me in the comments, do you think Lamar Jackson will sign the extension with the Ravens, or does this story end in another city? Before talking about who will star, let's talk about who might be left out. With the arrival of OTAs, the team's organized activities, where there's 7-on-7 and even 11-on-11 without real contact, the competition for roster spots begins. And the first name that needs to be on your radar is Durham Smythe. Signed in March for $3 million for 1 year, Smythe arrived at a time of need. The Ravens lost Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar to the market. Complementing Mark Andrews was urgent. Smythe, more of a blocker than a receiver, seemed like a reasonable solution. But the draft changed the game. Baltimore chose 2 tight ends with real impact potential. Matthew Hibner from SMU arrived in the 4th round after shining in the last 2 years following a discreet stint at Michigan. He's explosive, has the ideal physique, and an impressive reach for receptions. Josh Cuevas was the 5th-round pick, coming from Alabama with stints also at Cal Poly and Washington. More versatile, he can play as an H-back, wide on the sideline, and seems like a more complete blocker in open field. If Hibner and Cuevas assimilate the fast playbook and overlap with Smythe's functions, the veteran could find himself without space, and he hasn't even stepped onto the field for the Ravens yet. Would you bet on Hibner or Cuevas to surprise in training camp? Leave your comments. Who could lose their job? Quarterbacks. Now let's move on to a position that no one expected to be so competitive in Baltimore. Quarterback. Skylar Thompson was signed a few weeks ago in a move that seemed simple, to support Lamar Jackson and spare Tyler Huntley the strain of the preseason. A veteran, experienced, he knows what NFL teams expect at each stage of the summer. But then 2 guys arrived that nobody drafted and who could complicate everything. Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt was a Heisman Trophy finalist. He's an extraordinary playmaker, despite questions about his height. Joe Fagnano is the opposite. Classic professional style, high football IQ, the kind of backup who can build a long and solid career in the NFL. Both were expected in some round of the draft before arriving at Owings Mills as undrafted free agents. That says a lot about the potential scouts see in them. Thompson has an advantage because he's a veteran, but he may have reached his ceiling. Pavia and Fagnano are still unknowns, and exciting unknowns. If one of the two wins, despite the lack of rhythm during training camp, Thompson's spot isn't guaranteed. Did you already know Diego Pavia? Do you think he has a future in the NFL? Tell me in the comments. Who could lose their job? Center. Finally, let's talk about a position that could define the success of the Ravens' offense in 2026. The center. Corey Bullock is the only player on the roster with previous experience playing for the team in that position. But when we look at the numbers, the story is more humble than it seems. 13 offensive snaps in total, 7 as center. He spent all of 2024 on the Ravens practice squad after signing as an undrafted free agent while transitioning from tackle to center. He's still the favorite to be a starter, yes, but the word unstable fits very well here. Veteran Danny Pinter arrived as a free agent from Indianapolis. He's in his 6th year in the league, played in 17 games last season, and has 136 snaps as center under his belt. It's real experience. And the big surprise could be Nick Dawkins, an undrafted free agent from Penn State. A 2-time captain of the Nittany Lions, he already has a lot of experience alongside Olaivalja Ione, who will likely be the Ravens' starting left guard, being a first-round pick. The chemistry between them exists and could count for points. Coincidence or not, Dawkins is a cousin of 2 legendary names in American football, Brian Dawkins and Dion Dawkins. The surname carries weight. The Ravens invested time developing Bullock, but when the dust settles, Pinter or Dawkins could very well be the pillar that anchors the entire offensive line. Do you think the Ravens' offensive line is strong enough to protect Lamar in 2026? Comment here. So, to recap everything we saw today, Lamar Jackson is absent from voluntary workouts, but Coach Jesse Minter seems calm and knows when he'll be back. The contract extension is still a giant question mark hanging over Baltimore. In the roster, the competition is fierce in several positions. Durham Smythe could lose his spot to hungry rookies. Skylar Thompson could be surprised by Pavia or Fagnano, and the offensive line will need to decide who the starting center is before training camp really begins. This team has pieces, it has potential, but it has unanswered questions. And now I want to hear from you. Is this team ready to go far in 2026? Leave your opinion in the comments, and if you like the content, give it a like and ring the bell so you don't miss any Ravens updates here on the channel. Until the next video.